Well then,
Let's go.
And good luck, Mr. Stinger.
Good luck to you, Yaga.
Thank you very much. And, well, I guess we are just going to start with commentary, or do you have something else to mention, Carlo?
I go ahead. Tell us about this game, and this category especially.
Alrighty. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Seeker of Mana. You may or may not know this game. It's an action RPG from Squaresoft. And, well, a lot of people remember this game, especially because you can play this with up to 3 players on a Super Nintendo, which is kind of unique, especially for an RPG. And that makes it also a lot of fun to play. But also, like a lot of, at least earlier, titles for RPGs, it does have, well, a fair few things not working right in the code. And we are aiming to use and abuse a lot of those, well, features, we could say. So, I guess we may want to introduce ourselves once in a while. So, Mr. Stinger, why don't you go ahead?
Hello, I am apparently Mr. Stinger today. Or you can just call me Stinger.
Sure. Alrighty. I am Yagamoth, and, well, we've been both running this game, at least in the one-player, two-controller category, since quite a long time. On and off, once in a while, and trying to compete for the record eventually. So my current PB is, I don't even know, something like 1 hour and 49 minutes. And for StingerPA, what is your PB currently?
I've got a 151.35 still.
Alrighty.
So, I need to improve that someday.
Yeah, you can beat that once you find the time and motivation for it. So for anyone wondering, this game, it does have a lot of glitches and a lot of things going through it, and if you have never played it, you might get a bit lost. We will try to guide you through this, but it might be a bit difficult once in a while. Either way, for the early game, all you need to know is we are going to try and kill between 6 and 8 rabbits in the early section of the game. That is mostly just to level up our weapon. Our weapon is a sword, and if you kill a total of 11 enemies that are at least equal or higher level than you, you will gain full weapon experience and level up your weapon. Once you level up your weapon, you will be able to charge up that weapon by just holding the attack button, which is B in this case, and then unleash, after about 3 seconds of charging, a special attack that does about 50% more damage per charge level. The higher level your weapon is, the higher level you can level it up. Our goal for now is to bring the sword up to level 1, because that is the maximum level we can bring it to for now. Also, these little jumpy guys, those are called rabbits, they have 20 HP, and we have high and low damage rolls. The high damage roll is 18 damage, the low damage roll is 14 damage. If we get 18, we can immediately, after something like half a second slash again. If we get a low damage roll, we may have to wait a little bit longer until, well, we are able to kill them with certainty. So there is a lot of little randomness in Seeker of Mana, and a lot of things are just, you do those on the fly with hopefully not too tragic consequences, so to speak. So Seeker of Mana in a nutshell is 95% of the things you see will be planned, but almost everywhere, or pretty much everywhere, 5% of the time something goes wrong, and you have to adapt really quickly on the fly to it. So after this initial section, the story for Seeker of Mana is pretty straightforward. You are this little boy, you fall down to a waterfall, pick up a sword because you need to whack your way through the bushes and get back to your hometown. But that sword happens to be the mana sword that protected the village from monsters. People get mad at you because you picked up the sword that protected the village, and they will also not be too happy about this outcome here either. Suddenly, you face the first boss. One of the great things about Seeker of Mana is it's essentially a boss rush. This guy is called Mad Ant, and the strategy to defeating him is you just hit him before he hits you. That's the short version. It doesn't really matter too much whether you take damage or not, because you need to wait until your stamina bar, the bottom, reaches 100% to deal a proper amount of damage anyways. I almost split there. That would be a bit early.
Just a little bit early.
Indeed.
I accidentally drew an acid breath. Standing a little bit too far away from Mantis and that causes him to do things other than just slash his claws.
Indeed. A lot of boss strategy revolve around us manipulating the bosses to behave in a certain way. If you are far away from the Mantis and he will use special abilities like his claw or his cycle attack or a breath or whatever, if you are standing close to him, depending on where you stand relative to his position, he will swing one of his claws slowly or both of his claws quickly. We aim to just hit him before he slashes both of his claws quickly, and optimally, in theory, you would not get hit by both of his claws, but that is such a precise position that's almost impossible to get reliably. And if you stand just a bit too far away, you will get an acid breath in your face, and, well, you lose a bit more time than you would gain otherwise by standing just out of range of his claws, but in range for him to swing them. So, after this first boss was pretty straightforward, we get expelled from our home village in Podos, and, well, Gemma the Knight asks us to go to the Water Palace to, well, give us further instructions on what we need to do to become the hero of the story, the Mana Knight, and what we need to do next. By the way, I'm not going to keep track of the story for too much, because we are going to be skipping a lot of that in the coming section anyways, but just to give you a brief overview, I guess. If you see us wiggling really weird on the place or in the areas, that is usually not because we are bad or just be trying to be fancy, but because we are trying to manipulate enemy spawns. So most areas can have up to 2 enemy spawns, up to 3 enemy spawns, with the exception of the previous section we just crossed through. That field is a bit special in that it only has a maximum of 2 enemy spawns at a time. So if we want to manipulate more enemies to spawn to level up our weapons, or just defeat them for some weapon experience, we need to wait in certain areas just a little bit to make them appear within time.
And one thing I'd like to note about diagonals in this game is there's something I call magic diagonals, where you don't lose time by wiggling back and forth. You still keep the same horizontal and vertical movement speeds, no matter if you're just holding straight or if you're going in a diagonal.
Indeed. So, first cutscene here, you just mash through the text. Text and cutscenes are going to be less and less throughout the game, which is kind of nice, because, well, text mashing, that's okay. But the plot is here, at least for now. This lady here is called Luca. She tells us, hey, you have the mana sword and now you need to go and power it up in the various, well, areas where the mana seeds are being kept. Those mana seeds will power up your sword and then you can go and defeat the evil, something like that. So to note, I don't think those seeds are absolutely required, but at least this one here is. Also, another note about the mana seeds, those are not just plot elements, they also increase your power just ever so slightly as well. What they do is they increase your magic attack power, your physical attack power, your defense power. Overall, it's just a bit of a stat increase, so that's nice. Also, here we are going to save and quit after receiving also a new weapon, the spear. And then we just reset the game by holding start, select L and R at the same time to reset the game real briefly. Doing this in this section saves us about 2 text boxes and we don't have to walk all the way outside, so it's just ever so slightly faster. Also, we are now going to be equipping the spear, and the goal is to level up the spear to level 1, kind of like the sword we leveled up to the previous section, or well, up to the Water Palace, up to level 1 as well. I'm going to be aiming to kill a lot of those weaker enemies since, oops, as it turns out, like before, the enemies here, they are not particularly strong, and that's good for us. because we don't care about how strong the enemies are for our weapon experience, as long as we just kill them while they are in a certain level range. So we gain full weapon experience regardless. I killed something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 enemies on the way, so I will need to kill 5 more in the next section to level up the spear to level 1. And also here we come up to our first obvious glitch in the run. It's actually technically going to be also set up for another glitch, but let's just put it this way. We are going to get a lot of money. So in the cave here, we meet Nico. He is a traveling salesman and asks for double the price of every item he sells. But price for us is not particularly much of a problem, since we just, well, gain a ton of money by selling him his own goods. Or at least that's kind of what it looks like. What I'm doing here is I go into my regular menu after buying 2 items. Then I sell both of those items again, go into the buying menu for creating a new menu in the shop. This saves the menu that I currently have open, and boom, suddenly the menu is corrupted enough that I can actually select an empty item slot, where Nico will just allow me to sell literally nothing. That nothing is worth almost 30,000 gold, and that is literally enough just for the entirety of the rest of the game. So one thing to note here is we actually did get, or put, the corrupted item that we created and sold, the black item, into the last item slot. The reason why we do this is because if you have the corrupted item in one of the earlier item slots, it will mess up your inventory and you cannot normally select your items without going out of your way or doing some weird, silly things. So with that out of the way, we have enough money to traverse the rest of the game, and you may have noticed we bought 2 of each of the consumable items. Also, I would like to point out, this area here is highly volatile in terms of how dangerous it is. In Sigurd of Mana, it's really easy to get comboed and killed rather quickly. If we are unlucky, we get hit by balloon by those bat enemies, and that would just stun us for 10 seconds. If we get ballooned in the wrong section or the wrong spot, they would just straight up kill us. So let's hope that doesn't happen. That would be kind of awkward.
Yeah, I managed to dodge a balloon by going in an exit just now.
Okay, that's good. Oh wow, the goblin just instantly recovered. Alright, we are fine. So I leveled up my spear weapon on the chest here, and this chest contains the magic rope. Magic rope is your exit item in this game. You use it and you get sent back to the entrance of the area that you've entered, as long as you're in a dungeon area. So, those goblins in Sigurd of Mana, they are really dangerous, because you only have 1 character so far. It's really difficult to recover, or more specifically, it's just luck-based. If you are just slightly off and they hit you in an unfortunate way, and that happens rather frequently, or quickly anyways, they will potentially just combo you and hit you again while you're lying on the floor, and hit you again and hit you again until you're dead. You don't have particularly much HP, being only level 2 or 3 at this point, and you also don't have a whole lot of armor, as in you literally didn't buy any armor yet. We are going to do this in the Dwarven village here. Thankfully, I think we both got through, so that's nice.
Yeah, I had a very good guy's navel.
Nice, excellent. So in the Dwarven village, our goal is to do 2 things. We first go towards upgrade our sword. That is something that we are required to do by the plot, but also upgrading the sword will allow us to level it up to level 2 a bit later. Plus it gets a bit stronger as a baseline, so that's also really nice. Further, we are going to buy some items here. 3 power wrists, which increase our power by 5, so that means we are just straight up dealing something like 5 more damage. I'm not sure that's accurate, but that's kind of the idea. Then we are buying something like 7 spiky suits instead of just 2. We only need 2 to equip them, but we need 5 of them to throw them away. So let me explain what is going to be happening here. I stand in this very peculiar spot on the left side of the screen, and then equip and then throw away the specific armor item that I have equipped. Equip my sword because we're going to use the sword next, and we move on. So what I did there is I stood in a very specific spot on the screen. Also, by the way, this theater here is just another plot point to make the next boss spawn. Essentially, you meet the elder of the village who is selling you a poor theater performance, and the little sprite just kind of tricking you into giving them money for, well, getting home, I guess, which is not terribly wrong. Either way, back to the glitch that we just did. We only bought 2 of each of the items for consumables, 2 cups of wishes, 2 medical herbs, 2 candies, stuff like that. And the maximum normally in Secret of Mana is 4, which you can have in an inventory. What we did is we stood in that specific spot and throwing away our items. That happened to do a bit of a weird thing, and in that it reduced the amount of items we have in our inventory by 2. So what that does is, since we now have 0 of each of the items in our inventory, we can still select them, they will underflow, and we have afterwards 7 of those items if we use 1. So in short, we have a total of 8 of each consumable item now in our inventory, and hopefully this is going to be enough for the rest of the game, as long as nothing bad happens. So what the game tries to do with the unequipment is it tries to unequip your item that you currently have equipped, and then it wants to delete it. However, that unequipping process goes a bit wrong, to say the least, and the game kind of has a bit of messed up code in a lot of places, this one included. So based on your screen position, you will just alter different values based on where you're standing on the screen. That's the gist of it, and we just manipulate it to get more items with that.
Also, the early cycle.
Oh. Did you get it?
Yep.
Nice. I was just short.
I think I got all 46s and a crit, because I got even 1 kill earlier than usual.
That's really good. Alright, this was the Tropic Hollow. After bosses you gain weapon orbs, which is not really relevant in this category specifically. Weapon orbs are usually used to upgrade your weapon, but we are not going to upgrade any more weapons, we have all the weapons we need. So Tropic Hollow is just your standard, you know exactly what you're doing boss, you charge up your attack to level 1 and then you hit him as early as possible and every time you can. So, and finally, we get our second party member here, the sprite. Unfortunately, I cannot name the sprite chef either, because Secret of Mana only allows you to name 2 characters the same thing. So I'm just going to name him Jeff. Sounds like a plan. So, now we have here a slightly different setup for our oncoming menus. What I'm going to be doing is I will equip the sprite with some basic armor and equipment items, and then I will set up my second controller to be upside down. So this category is 1 player, 2 controller. We are not going to be controlling the second character all the time. However, we will be using him in various places just as we need it. So actually I need to move this over here, and there we go. So, Secret of Mana is special in the sense that your standard cookie cutter category is 1 player, 2 controller, not just 1 controller. That is because it's actually overall a fair bit easier to play with 2 controllers, which may seem weird at first, but the short version is most of the tricks and all the weirdness that you encounter in this game is just way easier to handle if you have control over multiple characters. So, set up the controllers, walk outside, and we go. Alright, let's see. I will need to keep track of how many enemies I kill. so I might not talk quite as much here. But the gist of it, what we are trying to do right now, is we are trying to level up the sword to level 2 for the boy before the next boss. And for that we need a total of 12.5 kills. Half kills are when the boy does not get the last hit on the enemy, or the enemy is too low level, like this flower right here. So, let's see. Okay. What we normally do in a casual playthrough after you defeat the Tropicana is you go to Elini's forest. You go through it, in the middle you see 2 werewolves harassing a young lady, and after defeating the werewolves you would have then subsequently a 3rd party member. We are not going to do that. We are actually going to use the back entrance through Elini's forest through, well, let's put it this way, clever means or clever use of game mechanics. So what I'm doing here is I'm opening the menu and closing it again. Boom! After I hit those weird poles or rope hole thingies over here, suddenly we walk through walls. So the short version of what is happening here is Seeker of Mana is questionably programmed. Whenever you hit one of those rope pull items, which by the way, the intended use for those rope pulls is that you just use the whip weapon to jump across the gap. The whip weapon you would not get until you defeat the next boss. Well, you don't get it, but you can still use the rope pulls to walk through walls by, well, rather clever use of multiple controllers. Alrighty, let's see. Also, this area has werewolves. Werewolves are ridiculously powerful, and you really don't want to mess with them, since they have really high attack range and speed, and overall they are just kind of a mess to deal with. We will be farming a few enemies to level up our sword to level 2, hopefully, in a quick fashion. And also gain some basic character levels in the meantime along the way, which is kind of nice. So yeah, what rope pulls are supposed to do, as I said, is they are supposed to bring you across the gap when you use the whip weapon. But how it's programmed is more like, whenever you hit a rope pull with any weapon, the game will start to check, oh, let's let the characters walk through walls first. As in, that's literally the first thing it does. And then it stops your movement normally, as in, you cannot normally move while you have walk through walls active after hitting a rope pull, so your characters will just kind of awkwardly stand still for a second whenever you hit a rope pull one way or another. But the way we do this is we use the level 1 weapon charge of the sword to use a launching attack. And that launching attack allows us to chair. That launching attack allows us to move while we are supposed to have stopped movement, and because the game allows us to move through walls, well, that's exactly what we do. So I just leveled up the sword to level 2, which is really handy, since that's exactly what we need for the upcoming boss here. So what is going to happen here is I used a barrel on the sprite. Barrels are really overpowered in this game, that they absolutely completely negate every single point of physical damage dealt. So the sprite would normally be not fast enough to avoid getting hit by a spiky tiger that is initially just slamming down onto the floor. This way, with a barrel, we will keep control over him and also try to have the spiky tiger eat the little sprite. By the way, the sprite is male in the English version and gender neutral in Japanese. But let's get to this later. So what I'm doing here is, boom, kill the spiky tiger. So this might have looked a bit weird to anyone who ever played Seeker of Mana casually. Spiky tiger is one of the most tricky bosses, especially early on, to defeat. He has a whole assortment of attacks that are unavoidable, as in just straight up unavoidable, or at least really difficult to handle, especially without proper equipment. What we just did there, I hope you got it too, Stinger.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually had a really good Spiky Tiger split.
Excellent. What we just did there is we used something that we call weapon charge glitch, or also overcharge attack. That's kind of the same thing. Essentially, the gist of it is we charge up the sword to level 2, which is the maximum charge level, and then we use the second controller to swap out the spear to a level 1 weapon, which is the spear. And having a level 2 charge on a level 1 weapon really freaks out the game. And let's try that again. The way the game tries to handle this is to just increase your current weapon charge level by 1 every other frame. So we just attack with an insanely high charge level for the weapon. To give you a frame of reference, the normal level for a weapon charge is level 8 maximum. That is endgame. It takes you something like 20 or 24 seconds to charge up to a level 8 charge, which is kind of strong, as in each charge level gives you 50% more damage, but also not that insane. We attack with something like a level 70 or 80 or something like that charge attack, so that's a fair bit stronger, to say the least. And also, we use a secondary method to buffer our weapon inputs or attacks, usually on most bosses. On the early bosses here, there is no risk of them dodging them, or barely any anyways, and so we don't need to buffer them necessarily. I will probably still do it against this little fish guy. Nah, never mind. But this is how we defeat a lot of the bosses. So this may look kind of trivial, but there's always a catch to it. For example, Spiky Tiger earlier, he could have just jumped away. There's something like, I don't know, 1 in 3, 50-50 chance that he will just jump away instead of numbing on the sprite barrel.
Yeah, I forget what the exact percentage is on that. But it's probably 50-50.
Probably 50-50,
or
yeah.
25%.
Either way, it's always a chance that something goes wrong, especially the further we get into the game. Currently we can one-shot bosses, but already on the next boss, the Fire Gigas, there is a big catch to that. If we don't get a very precise setup, we might just straight up die against the Fire Gigas, depending on how our weapon charge works out. So, let's see. Let's talk a bit more about the weapon charge real quick. I think we have a total of 8 different charge levels for special attacks, but there's also the normal attack, so to speak. Also, do we go to save here? Fire Gigas?
Oh, yes. We're saving before Fire Gigas.
Sounds like a good plan. Alrighty. So we have a total of 9 different types of attack, just the normal slash, and then a level 1 attack, level 2 attack, etc. All of those attacks have different attack animation frames and invulnerability frames. For the most part, we are going to be aiming to use a specific type of attack based on which frame we get to open or buffer our attacks. As in, at the bottom, you can see whenever we use the overcharge attack on bosses, you see the bar freak out and just kind of go haywire, and, well, it looks really scrambled and messy. We, by now, kind of recognize and learned which attacks correspond to which scrambled mess at the bottom, and we also know what we need to do to get good boss kills. So here, we are going to be saving real quick before we encounter the Fire Gigas, because this is a no-reset marathon type run. Fire Gigas can be quite the menace. In theory, I think as long as you are playing it absolutely 100% well, you shouldn't die, but it's so easy to mess up and it's so tricky to recover that it's way safer to just straight up save before you go into the 5 gigas lair. So this is the Earth Temple. You will see some more specific movement, like just moving against walls in weird angles to spawn manipulate enemies for the most part. Sometimes I'm just bad. By the way, I'm the guy on the left. Sometimes I'm just bad, but most of the time it's actually intended behavior. Wow. The boy just one-shot the black for me, if I crit.
That's convenient.
That was kind of weird. So here is where you can see, once again, the intentional use of the whips. You just attack a rope fall with it. And then you jump across the gap. Also, you may see us in a lot of places just switch our characters rather frequently, because the AI in this game is rather questionable in how it behaves, at least for casual playthrough. But for speedruns, we have learned how to manipulate our second AI partners properly, and they are still faster than us trying to run with 2 controllers at the same time, at least most of the time. So, 5 gigas, good luck. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I messed up. Should be okay though.
Okay, I got it.
Nice.
Had to
So
go with
I
the backup
kind of-
strat though.
What I did is I missed the correct charge level. Actually, that's not even true. I did get the correct charge level, but my finger kind of slipped and didn't release the attack button. Alright, I got it, the backup.
Okay.
So what I did there is I started casting a spell with the sprite. And while you're casting spells, you are completely immune to any damage. The sprite is low enough level that he would get one-shot by pretty much any of the 5 giga spells or attacks. And to give you an idea, normally you're supposed to have 3 characters here. The developers intended to spread the damage across 3 characters. We only have 2, because that's way more convenient and also slightly faster to have at this point in time. So the sprite, because he's such low level, would just basically get one shot. The boy survives 1 attack. So in order for me to not instantly wipe, I just used a spell to not necessarily deal any damage, just make literally the sprite survive and not get killed. Also here, I'm not going to use the magic rope to get out of the Dwarven village, because we entered the Earth Temple down there, and if we use the magic rope now, we would just get back out of the Earth Temple instead. So, alrighty, what is next? I think Pandora Ruins. So you should be probably about 30 seconds ahead of me or so.
Yeah, I'm going into the canon travel now.
Okay. Oh, come on. Please, please.
I had a ton of trouble with bees too, just through there.
They're really not nice sometimes. Alrighty. So, a lot of the canon travel guys are just kind of, hey, canon travel, that seems really fast, right? But in reality, the entire process of canon travel, it costs you something like 30 seconds. So in certain instances, like getting to Pandora here, technically speaking, if you have really good control over your characters, it would be faster to run to Pandora instead of using the canon travel guy. But at least from Gaia's novel to Pandora, that's not really reliable to do. So, talk to Fanna. This is not out of order early game. And there we go. So by the way, to just give you a brief idea of why 2 controllers. 2 controllers allows you to use the weapon swap glitch, and also have a secondary controller to open up the menu for buffer purposes whenever you are using the overcharge glitch. If you have only one controller, you have to use an AI control character to set up an overcharge glitch. You can still use it, but there are two catches to that. One is the AI control character is way less reliable, since, well, it's AI controlled instead of manually controlled. And two is you cannot reliably retain your overcharge attack, which is something that I have not mentioned yet. We can retain any charge attack we want just by virtue of having a second controller active. What we do is we open up the menu on the second controller, not just for buffering and seeing which attack we are going to get, but also to release our charge button and then immediately hit it again as soon as the menu closes from the second controller. This allows us to really easily gain control over another charge as soon as we reach 100% stamina again. As in, it's literally, we overcharge with a charge level 80, and then we just keep the charge level while still, well, executing the attack and only having to regenerate stamina. Also here the wall face. Good luck, Mr. Stinger.
Yeah. Wallface is generally a fairly easy boss, but the thing that can go wrong with him is if you kill both of his side eyes, the middle eye will start executing a special AI where it starts pushing you towards the bottom, and it's just generally slower.
Indeed. Also, you may be wondering, how can you even kill both eyes? So, well, two things. It's kind of difficult sometimes to get the correct charge attack. So if we get the whirlwind charge attack instead, we may take the risk anyways and just use a whirlwind which can hit both eyes, for example. The other thing is, the wall face has enough HP that if we land a low damage roll, it will not actually kill the wall in the middle. Further, it has approximately a 40% chance to straight up evade your attacks, which is kind of irritating, but that can happen. Alrighty. 2 misses for me.
Alright, I got it. First try.
Nice.
Game's trying to keep me ahead because it knows I need the help.
Well, we'll see. Buffy will probably have another word with us, one way or another.
Yeah, I seem to remember the last time we raced, Buffy decided that you were not going to win that day.
Nope. That was amazing. That was amazing. So, plot-wise, what happened here is we went to the Pandora Ruins. Well, yeah, I guess. But let's actually backtrack real quick. Plot-wise, what happened is after we went to Spiky Tiger, we heard Luca that the Patron of Water and our Water Spirit, which we can now cast Freeze Element, got kidnapped. We rescued Andini. With Andini's help, we got into the Earth Temple. We defeated the Earth Gigas and sealed the Earth Seas. Then after that, we learned that the Pandora Ruins, strange things are happening, and we investigated this. And well, now we defeated a gigantic wall with a face on it. It's literally called the wall face, by the way. Yeah. Which, ironically, even though it's a wall, it's the first boss who has an evasion rating, which means evasion rating is usually in this game, enemies either have evasion or they don't. Which means they have evasion 40% of the time, even though your attack clearly connects with the enemy. It will not actually deal any damage. It's just pure chance, which is also why it's so important to be able to retain your charge attacks. So now we go back into Trias Navel. Go ahead.
I kind of like to think of Wallface as rather than having a evade rating, it's a wall, so it has armor. And so it just means your attacks aren't really piercing the armor.
I guess
it doesn't
works.
make any sense for any other bosses, but
I mean,
that's my logic for why Wallface is the first boss with an evade rating.
Fair enough. I mean, he could also blink really quick. You just don't see it. At least among D&D type rules, it would make sense. Just kind of that armor type thingy. So, alrighty. Did you kill Kilroy already?
I'm on Kilroy right now.
Good luck. So Kilroy, like Wallface, 40% of the time you just straight up miss. About 20% of the time, if you hit, you have a low damage roll, so you have a bit of less than 50% chance to one-shot kill Roy.
Like I just did.
Nice.
Almost
wrong,
40 Kilroy.
Alrighty. Let's see. I'm about to try. Okay, I got a low damage roll again, kind of like against Wallface. And the second attack hit, so that's nice. Okay, I didn't get the whiteout. Did you get any whiteout skips?
No.
Alright, I guess it happens. So what we are trying to do there at the entrance... Let me backtrack a little. Normally, after boss fights, you try to gather your party to make the party gathering of the after event a little bit faster. But in certain instances, like this case here, we try to get something that is called the whiteout skip, where we activate a specific trigger, like the exit trigger, at a specific frame, and that somehow skips whiting out after the boss fight, which saves us about a few seconds. But it's mostly random whether we get it or not, but we're trying to wiggle just across those switches and levers and stuff.
By the way, have we talked about the multi-tap at all?
We didn't yet.
Okay, I've been using it the canon travels so far, and it's really going to come into play after the Jabberwocky fight, which is coming up. And we'll explain a lot of what it does then, but you can do some pretty interesting things with turning the multi-tap function on and off.
Indeed. To give you a frame of reference, by the way, we are using the third character, or the third controller, not the second one for our secondary character. And you can only do this really on a regular Super Nintendo. This is not something you can pull off on emulator or on Virtual Console. So, good luck on Jabberwocky, don't die, please.
Let's hope not. But I just had a weird thing happen. One of the Ifish outside the Water Palace casted Acid Storm on me.
That's really rare. Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Okay, Jabberwocky. So, weird thing about Jabberwocky is his hitbox extends slightly below his legs, so I don't really have to walk up much at all, and I will still be making contact with this hitbox. Jabberwocky, please. Okay, 3 misses and the sprite's unconscious. He's unconscious again. He's dead.
Alright, I got him. I got a low damage roll and he instantly healed himself. Oh, don't forget this bit.
4 misses.
So, Jabberwocky is one of those
5.
notorious bosses. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm still dealing with Jabberwocky.
Uh-oh, don't do it, don't die. Yeah, Jabberwocky is one of those notorious bosses that he does not usually give you trouble, as in... Many times you will just straight up one-shot him, but if he decides to be a monster... Nice. If he decides to be a monster... he can really mess up your day, and he also has the potential to just straight up kill you if he feels like it. Because, once again, he has a spell that targets all your characters, and because we only have 2 under-level characters, it will more or less just straight up kill them. And yeah, recovering from Jabberwocky's in physical attacks is kind of difficult at times, especially because you only have 2 characters to play with. Alrighty, also you may see it on Stinger's screen soon, I just did it earlier. What we do is we talk to Luca with the third controller and then we shut off the multi-tap. What that does for us is cutscenes or dialogue boxes get initiated by your main controller that you're just talking with the character. If it's the third controller, what we are doing is we are shutting off the multi-tap with a little switch that is on all multi-taps that tells the Super Nintendo whether there are 2 or more controllers connected. and we're just shutting down the multi-tap. What the Seeker of Mana does with that is, it just goes, oh, the third controller is no longer here. Let's assign the third controller back to being AI controlled automatically. And we can do this during cutscenes, during screen transitions, which is really, really convenient and handy to do. So what we are doing here is we talk to the cannon travel guy with the third controller, and then subsequently just shut off our multi-tap. So the next cutscene that happens next time is assigned to an AI controlled character, and we can just walk around during that cutscene already without having to wait around for a while. So also here are little pebblers, those blue hedgehog guys. They are irritating to deal with because, kind of like bosses, they have an evasion rating that can just, well, straight up make them avoid your attack. As in 40% of the time, the pebblers will take none of your attack. Instead, they will just evade it, even though your weapon clearly connected with their hitbox. I needed to use 3 attacks. Optimally, you can just use 1 attack to kill all 3 of them, but that is really rare. It can happen, but usually on average you just hit them 3 times and then you are done with them. Ouch. Sprite is getting at low at HP here. Let's hope that doesn't influence it too much. So those pebblers, they were occupying the village of the... That's awkward. The little Moogle friends, and so we defeated the pebblers so the Moogles can get back into their village. Wow. Confused characters, please. I need to make another run through the forest now, because I accidentally went backwards.
Oh no.
That's awkward. So, the solution to this area here is you need to go through the area in the correct order of the seasons, which means you go from winter to spring to summer to autumn and back to winter and then over to spring again. So what just happened there is I got confused by an owl. Confusion inverts your controls. I didn't realize that the sprite was confused still, and so it inverted my controls and I walk backwards, which means the puzzle is destroyed. And I need to do the entire ordeal again. So are you on Springbeak already now?
I'm entering Springbeak now.
Nice, good luck. Springbeak is quite the monster, to say the least. He has a defensive hitbox on his beak, which means as long as you hit his beak, you literally deal no damage. It just completely deflects your attack. And also, he has spells which are kind of dangerous, but also well telegraphed, so they are not usually an issue. But at the same time, he's really difficult to hit most of the time because of how his hitbox works. Also, weapons in Seeker of Mana have twice the range during boss battles. So what we are trying to do is stand in just the correct place to not hit his beak, as in completely avoid his hitbox with his beak. Preferably, there we go. And we need to try and hit only his body without hitting his front portion. Also, his legs are invulnerable, only his body is vulnerable. If he jumps around and just casts spells, he can be quite the menace. In my case, I think I had about 2 or 3 misses on top of it also deflecting because I was too close to the beak. In boss battles, your melee weapons have twice the range, which means usually that's really nice on bosses, so you don't have to go too close to them. But for Springbeak, it's actually a bit detrimental, since it makes it more likely that you actually hit his front portion instead. Ooh, don't die.
Okay, made it past Springbeak. I got lots of balloons.
That's annoying.
It's somebody's birthday today, apparently.
Happy birthday. Oh, something we didn't mention earlier. You know, we went to the Earth Palace to get Gnome, but we didn't actually seal the Mana Seed. Because, well, you don't have to, so we don't do it. We never actually use magic as an offensive tool, which is when you would want to seal the Mana Seed, because the more Mana Seeds you seal, also I'm going to save, the more Mana Seeds you seal, the higher magic level you can train. But since we never use offensive magic, the level of the magic for the most part is just completely irrelevant. And if we don't have to absolutely seal a mana seed, we don't do it. There's in fact only two more mana seeds that we are going to seal for the rest of the game. Also, another technique that I have not mentioned yet, but just kind of touched on, is switch dashing. You see a switch between the two characters. One is AI controlled, one is manually controlled rather frequently. You can see that by the indicated number in the top right of the character's portrait. We are switching relatively frequently from one character to the other, just because this allows us to switch dash, as in you can only run while your stamina bar is at 100%. Your stamina bar fills up after you stop dashing, and you cannot change your direction while you're running around. Also here, there's going to be a little mini skip. You're supposed to talk to the king of the mushrooms. He will tell you, hey, there's something in the cave, maybe you can go investigate it. But we can just push against the guards that is guarding the exit and repeatedly press select to phase through him really easily. So that's nice. I feel like I was explaining something else, I've just forgot about it. Oops.
Not sure, but I nearly got destroyed on the way to Matango.
Ouch. Don't get destroyed. Oh yeah, switch dashing. There we go. Switch dashing, you just switch characters, because AI control character when they are running, it doesn't cost them any stamina, so you can immediately switch to them and start running with them again. So it's kind of a delicate balance. But actually, rather often than not, it's not just about being faster, but straight up manipulating your AI partner to get past enemies. When you're running, enemies or AI control characters will run after you regardless of what enemies are close by. If you're walking, trying to get past the enemies can be way more of an issue, because your AI control characters are just kind of reacting, engaging in combat with them and stuff. Oh, that's going to be awkward. Another medical herb wasted. I want until... There we go. My confusion wore off. So, alrighty. Next up we have the Great Viper. Great Viper is a boss where he is the first boss who has over 1000 HP, which means we cannot... We cannot one-shot him with our physical attacks. Be really awkward. Gonna be really awkward. I have a level 1 charge, that's bad. Yeah, that's better. Wow, that was awkward. So, no matter what, your maximum damage you can do is capped at 999. You cannot deal more damage with one hit. Which means if the boss has over 1000 HP, you need to hit them at least twice. For the Great Viper, that can be quite a tricky affair, since his movement is rather erratic and can be difficult to plan around, especially because when you're charging your weapon, your movement speed is halved. So that doesn't help. So I tried to go for a normal slash on the Great Viper, but I missed my second attack. So I had to redo the entire ordeal, as I didn't buffer my second attack, which is a little bit risky, but it can work out anyways.
I'm missing all over the place on Viper.
Oh no, good luck. Viper is not necessarily dangerous, usually as long as you are paying attention to your health. but he can surprise you by just comboing you on his own. As in, he can really easy just unlock you and kill your characters quickly, but as long as you keep the other character out of range, he is not dangerous in that sense. Okay, next up well, you may be wondering, wait, so far you only had ever 2 characters. Where's the 3rd character? You skipped her earlier, but does she never come back? Are we never going to go back to get her? To answer that, conveniently enough, at a certain point in the game, you experience a certain event. Once you go to the desert for the first time, you get lost in the desert. Then you get picked up by a sand ship, and the sand ship crew and people are just, well, kind of making you work on the sand ship for being able to travel on it for a while. What happens is the boy gets sent to the machines room, the sprite gets sent to the kitchen, which, by the way, that's a terrible idea, and the lady gets sent to the officer's office. I'm not sure what it is called. Either way, the lady is sent into the office, and conveniently enough, this is where your party gets split up normally, as in you physically lose all the characters from a party except for the boy, which you still have control over. And then you just gather the other 2 again. And by now you may have noticed that sometimes in the text box there is a really weird look on the name, like a name is just really messed up. One of those names is
Go, 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 go.
Go, 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 go. I think I got it. I'm not sure. Either way, that name is when you don't name a character. We never gave the lady a name, and that is what her name turns out to be if you don't give her a name. As in, it's a 24 character long name. Oh shoot, I needed to talk to the other guy twice. Whoopsie. I keep looking at that. It's the 24 character long name, and in Secret of Mana, technically speaking, you would like to have the shortest name possible, but because you skip getting the girl early game, you never get to name her, so she has the default name that the game initializes, which just corresponds to the highest possible value, which in terms of letters just corresponds to 12 times go, as in just go, 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 which is kind of ironically fitting for a speedrun because you want to go, go, go naturally in a speedrun, but at the same time, because the name is so long, you actually lose a fair bit of time over the course of the run.
Yeah, I think we calculated it about 25 seconds lost just due to the name, but we get way more than that from actually skipping the girl. So.
Indeed. Also interesting, something to point out that the way we figured out, hey, we could actually skip the girl, we have the technology to do so, we just didn't assume it was faster until later. That was when we came up with that idea during another marathon race, wasn't it?
I think it was a solo run that I did.
Oh yeah,
and you were
that's right.
commentating.
Eventually it just kind of went... We could technically skip getting the girl, but that's not faster, or is it? And yep, it turns out to be way faster. Basically, the act of skipping the lady does not save you a whole lot of time, it saves you just a little bit. However, the big portion is not having a 3rd character trail behind you. Because in this game here, you cannot leave the screen while the other character is essentially at the edge of the screen. You have to keep your character on screen one way or another. Also, shout out to Mech Rider number 1. He is the last character boss who has less than 1000 HP, and thus we can one-shot him. Boom. So yeah, so far this race is a little bit back and forth. And I feel like this is, either way, a pretty decent run. Choose to a few of the difficulties that we can have against various bosses. If we get slightly unfavorable randomness or mess up just a little bit, it can turn south really, really quick. So, we now have the lady in our party. She was level 1, but after defeating a mech rider, she jumps up in levels, which is really convenient, so she gets a bit more HP buffer. And interestingly enough, this is also exactly where we are going to be buying some more basic equipment. So we get some gold vests and raccoon caps and a silver armlet for the lady. Since the lady never got properly named, her character also never got initiated, which means the weapon she normally comes with. The weapon she normally comes with is never actually added to our inventory, and also that means we don't have access to the claw weapon, even if we try to use it. Which, by the way, I could have equipped now already, because we have battles now. I forgot. Either way, since we don't have access to the claw weapon, if we wanted to use it, we would just need to keep it on the lady, which used to be a strategy, but we now have a better strategy to do a different type of skip. Although I may kind of resort to it in case that's necessary. So, we move on over to the ice country where some of our biggest enemies are. We now have 3 characters, which means traversing through areas is more difficult because they love getting stuck everywhere, and it's really tricky to maneuver them without getting stuck or slowed down too much. Especially if they get hit and knocked down to the floor, you need to recover somehow. And even though it's not usually dangerous, enemies just really are quite a menace, which is also why I used here the Frost Saber enchant from the lady. So the lady has buff and defensive spells for the most part. So what I did is I used the Frost Saber to enchant our weapons with Frost element. And what that does for us is whenever we hit an enemy, or more or less specifically a basic enemy like just some of the wolves, we have a very high chance of turning them into a snowman. The snowman is not guaranteed. Oh, that's bad. Alright. So it's just a high chance, but it doesn't mean that the snow wolf will always get turned into a snowman. We just kind of hope he does. Oh, I need to keep active. And enchanting the weapons with frost to cost us a little bit of time, but at the same time it's really very worthwhile. Essentially disabling the enemies for 10 to 15 seconds while we turn them into snowmen. Interestingly enough, weapon enchants actually don't apply the weapon element to it, which means even though those were frost weapons by look and nature and name, they don't actually deal frost elemental damage. So it doesn't really matter to us whether we have a specific element against a specific boss. You will always deal neutral element damage, it's just an added effect to it. Also here, after we defeat the Boreal phase, we get into this little village where we open up the oven and get Salamando out of it. Salamando is our next school of magic, summon spirit, that will help us on our journey. And you also will see the cutscene is really messed up that I just did there. I skipped one of the triggers, dealing with one of the guys. So what I essentially did is I talked with a random NPC, which had a really short dialogue box, and then I walked with the second controller up to the podium, where you normally get asked, hey guys, could you really quick pay attention to the oven so no one opens it? But yeah, of course you open it in the cutscene. But we skipped that initial, hey guys, could you pay attention to the oven portion? Which saves us about, I think, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. But the entire cutscene is really messed up. You probably will see it on Stinger screen very, very soon again. And you will just see the entire cutscene is out of sequence, as in every animation is just one step behind. The thugs at the end are appearing instead of disappearing. They didn't get spawned initially. It's really messed up of a cutscene. And that is just because we skipped one step. The reason why I like pointing that out so much is because that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here in the next area, in the Fire Palace. So normally what happens if you go through the Fire Palace after you just get Salamando without visiting the Ice Palace, you would go into the Mana Seed room and the text box would appear that, hey guys, we can't see the Mana Seed, it has been stolen, we need to retrieve it. The way you would normally do this is you go into the Ice Palace, defeat the Frost Gigas, and then you get it. You save Santa. But we don't save Santa in this game, because he never stole the seed, of course. So that might be confusing to you with the Santa, but that's literally what the game says it is. Santa Claus stole the Mana Seed. I'm not making it up. Either way, we skip past a ramp in the Fire Palace, which you're not normally supposed to do, but even casually, that's not terribly difficult to pull off. So what that does for us is something very simple. It saves a little bit of time with the current technique we have now. Just instead of going down into the basement, activating a orb with the newly acquired Salamando element, we just skip up a ramp which is normally supposed to just strictly push you down, as in you cannot walk up that ramp if you try. But with our technique, which is called, what did we say? Barrel power?
Barrel power slide.
Yeah. Or also barrel launching called in some of my streams. What we do is we give everybody in our party a barrel, and then we heal everybody at the same time through, let's say, clever sequencing of actions. What that does for us is whenever a barrel person gets healed, they get locked in their movement in a specific direction.
The Chabon had walked in my way.
Uh-oh.
I didn't know that could happen.
That can happen. I hope you have enough barrels to try again. Or refresh them. Either way, what we are trying to do is heal all the characters while they are barreled, and then push in a specific direction. For some reason, when you get healed into the healing animation when you are barreled, you get locked in the direction of walking at a rather high speed, actually, and you don't get interrupted by anything, not even the ramp pushing you down. So what we just do is we abuse that sliding from the barrel when you get healed to just push all our characters up the ramp. That used to be a pretty big ordeal to get up that ramp. You can probably just use a backup strategy with the normal thing instead.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay, good. So yeah,
that is not very hard.
It's not difficult, but if one of those Robin Hoods runs in your way, they can actually be really obnoxious about it.
Yeah, it completely blocked the sprite from getting up the ramp.
Yeah, and then you don't get up there. That's... yeah, but luckily you seem to have more barrels. That's good.
Yeah, I had to resupply them with the equipment trashing.
Makes sense. But yeah, that's a relatively recent technique to use that barrel power slide to get up the ramp. Especially for one controller, that used to be an ordeal of 1 or 2 minutes to get up that ramp, just because it's so difficult to do with one controller without the barrel power slide. Now with it, it's way more convenient. But unfortunately, it introduces the element of luck if one of the Robin Hoods walks in front of your characters. Maybe you'll need to find a bit of a different setup so they can't do that so easily. But for now, it's just rather straightforward. You push up your way the ramp and boom, you're there. Also, by the way, in this entire palace, as mentioned earlier, we mess up the sequence in the Fire Palace by just not... oh, I don't need to do that. I wanted to talk to Mara. We mess up the sequence of events in the Fire Palace. So the last step of, hey, the Fire Mana Seed has been stolen, we need to retrieve it, actually never happens. And just sealing the Fire Mana Seed while it's still there and doesn't get removed by the event because it's been stolen, because, well, it hasn't been, I guess. That allows us to seal the Fire Mana Seed and then subsequently take the Cannon Travel guy to the next place. Alrighty. Also, Minoros, the boss in the Fire Palace, is one of those bosses where normally is not an issue, but sometimes he can be quite a menace, to say the least. I think that's an understatement. So, by the way, I skipped over something that I mentioned in the sewer entrance, but maybe you can mention it once you get there.
Okay, yeah. It'll be a minute or two before I get to that.
Alright. Shoot. Don't accidentally walk backwards through the thing after you balloon enemies and you don't have any MP left anymore. That's awkward.
Oops.
I hope she doesn't get abducted now. That would be rather awkward in a race.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, well, it works. So that was a bit tricky. But maybe some people saw it on my screen, on the left that is. Those blue blobs, they turn into snowmen whenever they hit you, as in they have a really high chance to turn into snowmen, which costs you a lot of time, which is also why we invest a fair bit of time to try and sneak past them without getting hit. The most consistent way we found to do that is just use Balloon from the lady or any other spell that locks them into place for just long enough until we are past them. So I assume you're getting to the portion now?
Yeah, I'm in Southtown now. So one thing Yaga did and forgot to explain was the guard skip that we do here. By aligning on a specific pixel on the screen, I've got it, you can just run right past the guard here and without activating him.
Indeed.
It's technically pixel perfect, but it's not that hard because of the way the game aligns pixels.
Exactly.
And you can set yourself up pretty easily.
So to give you a frame of reference, normal walking is 2 pixels per frame, 1 frame is 1/60th of a second. Running is 3 pixels per frame, so 50% faster, and being slowed down by anything is 1 pixel per frame. So since we can only normally run to adjust our pixel, we just run for a short while to try and adjust our pixel alignment for that to be reasonable. So what you're normally supposed to do is talk to Mara in the top left of the town. She gives you a password, then you go to the guy who blocks the entrance to the sewer. This is the password all I'm going to mash. I didn't get it. Alrighty. We'll explain what's about it later.
Yeah, sewers at least went well for me, so that's the first thing to go right in a while.
Nice. So, let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, what you're normally supposed to do is talk to the top left lady in Southtown. She gives you a password that you can then subsequently enter at the guy who then also lets you into the sewers. But all those dialogue boxes and screen transitions, that's way too slow. We just walk around the cutscene trigger for the guy to block the entrance in the first place. Way more convenient. So, alrighty. Also, by the way, the ruins I'm just traversing through right now, this is essentially Secret of Mana in a nutshell. Every single room is planned on how you want to deal with it, how you want to go through it, how you want to traverse it, but every single room of those can also go wrong one way or another, and you have to adapt really quickly on the fly on how you, well, don't get it screwed over massively, so to speak. As in, even if you execute everything exactly the way you plan it to, you have a small chance of, well, enemy decides to be in your way now try to get past him anyways. It's not terribly dangerous, in the sense that it could kill you, but it's really easy to get messed up enough that it can get tricky and dangerous if that happens enough in a row, so to speak. So, the big spiky room. You get it?
Didn't get it.
Oh, that's unfortunate. So what we tried to do there is, after the cutscene in front of the ruins, there is a small time frame where we can press the B button, as in literally 1 frame after the cutscene ends. And what that does for us is it opens up a chest that is up on the balcony. Hang on a second, I have to deal with the second wall phase real quick.
Yeah, I managed to get the girl to suplex a zombie.
Nice. That's fascinating.
That was a surprise because I forget that's actually a thing in this game.
Okay, finally hit the wall face once. Or the doom wall, I guess it's called. Okay, there we go. So, the doom wall is a lot like the previous wall boss. You just avoid hitting both of his eyes, otherwise he will enter a special phase. And in this case, it would actually be a lot more devastating. It wouldn't just lose you time, but it would be really hard to recover, since his special attacks grab one of your character and completely disable him or her. And if that happens to be the boy, you might be in trouble. And also it deals quite a bit of damage. You may also not... So cool. Well,
I was going to comment on the fact that the 2 attacks that he'll use in that phase, one of them targets the character that's the furthest away, and the other one targets the one that's closest. So you end up having a lot of issues with wall face targeting 2 characters at once.
indeed. You need usually at least 1 character to do the buffering and keep your overcharge attacks, or at least execute them properly. So next up, after the wall, we have one of the most notorious bosses in this game for especially this category. He's not as bad for other categories, but especially for ours it is. This is going to be the vampire boss. Vampire boss. You can only hit him while he's jumping around. When he's not jumping around, I cannot hit him, at least not with weapons. You could technically cast spells on him, but our spells don't deal any damage, so that's kind of pointless. So we just need to hope he doesn't fly around for too long. But he can fly around for a really, really long time if he just decides to be like that. Which would be rather unfortunate, to say the least. So for me, Vampire decided to jump initially, which looked like a nice setup. But unfortunately, then afterwards he decided to just fly around. Alright, let's see. Where did I get this? I'm using... Oh, he doesn't have... Oh, nice, alright. So my Vampire wasn't too terrible so far. Bang, don't forget this bit.
Yeah, we'll see if Vampire decides to be nice to me and let me catch up a bit.
Good luck. So my Vampire, he just casted 1 spell and just then started jumping around. You need to hit him 3 times with overcharge attacks. By the way, all of our overcharge attacks are still subject to 40% of the time they straight up miss. So that's kind of an issue. Especially if you really need to get lucky for the Vampire to start jumping around in the first place and then hit him at the same time too. All of my attacks that I managed to throw at him actually connected, so that went pretty well, and he only casted 1 spell while he was in the air. If he is like that, he can literally just stay in the air for as long as he wants and never come down, which we just kind of hope doesn't happen. Most of the time he will eventually just start jumping around. Also, what I tried to do for a short while is lock him down with a spell cast, but unfortunately the lady didn't have any magic left over, so I needed to give her a fairy walnut to replenish magic points first. Usually you try to do this with the sprite, but the sprite was knocked unconscious on the floor for the meantime, so I didn't have that opportunity. So, alrighty. Next up in our order of business is we cleared the ruins, kind of like we did clear the Pandora ruins, and everybody's happy again, because no one's no longer corrupted like it was in Pandora. So Pandora was freed after we defeated the wall phase in the ruins. Now, certainly, North and South Town are freed after we defeated everybody in the ruins over here as well, right? But of course not. The Emperor turns out to be actually an evil guy, unfortunately, and throws us into prison. But kind of like Chrono Trigger or, well, games like that. The Empire is not terribly smart. They just imprison us with our weapons included.
Vampire.
Ooh, not nice.
He
just be a
gave
monster.
me perfect RNG to start, and I got 5 misses. I finally got him down though.
Alright. Whoopsie. I messed it up. So yeah, he can be a fairly big menace to say the least. We just usually hope it doesn't get too bad. Okay, let's hope this hits. Alrighty. The next boss here, the Metal Mantis, he has a ton of invulnerability frames, as in whenever you hear it blink, or whenever he is casting a spell, or whenever he is literally taking any action whatsoever, he will put up a shield where you can no longer hit him. Ah, this is really awkward. Alright, got him after all. So, for Metal Mantis, you usually get about 3 chances to hit him, and you need 2 hits to kill him. That's if you set it up properly. But doing the setup properly is really difficult on him, since whenever he gets vulnerable is kind of random-ish, as in you start to know when he could get vulnerable soon, and so you start trying to hit those windows. But at the same time, sometimes those windows are so small that it's literally impossible to actually get a hit in. So you just keep trying and trying and trying, and a lot like many other bosses, usually he is not too bad. But sometimes it decides to be quite the monster that, well, really messes up your day.
Yeah, Metal Mantis is one of the weird ones that really could end a run if he so desired.
Indeed.
I mean, you wouldn't really think so, since he's basically just a reskin of the first boss, but he has some nasty attacks, especially if he decides to cast Gem Missile on everybody.
Exactly. Also, fun fact, Metal Mantis is the boss that cost me the most time in the current record run. As in, you can gain about, I think, a minute on him, just by both getting a little bit better luck and also better execution. I also kind of messed up. So if you mess up just a little bit, that usually gets amplified based on which boss you're on. Metal Mantis, that can cost you a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite a minute in your PB, but probably about 40 seconds.
Yeah, something like that. So, alrighty, we move on to the top of the castle, where we meet the guy in the mech suit again. And he is called Mech Rider number 2. Mech Riders, by the way, are pretty stupid, but we'll be pointing that out a bit later as to why they are pretty stupid. This guy here, he just dies to 2 hits, and usually is not an issue, as long as the AI control character decides to not attack him. Preferably, that is. Also, eventually I would like to hit, so that would be nice. Also, you may be wondering, why is he not attacking? Well, that's part of why they are really questionable intelligent. But once again, there's a third one of those mech riders, and we will be having plenty of time to point it out during it. After this entire ordeal, finally, we get our flying companion Flammy, that we rescued earlier from the gigantic dragon viper worm. Something like that. Either way, we will be having access to flying in the overworld, so we can literally go anywhere we please. And if you know by now how, well, broken Secret of Mana is, we are going to break it some more. A fair bit more, in fact. So
Yeah, this has been child's play so far.
pretty much. So King Truffle, he tells you, hey, go southwest to Matango and deliver me home so he can explain you how to fly this weird flammy dragon. But we do have other plans, we just straight up go on. So I guess the King of the Truffles just stays on top of Flammy's back for the rest of the game. And I think he's okay with that. He gets to see the best view for us destroying the bosses. This works. So, next up we go mountain climbing, as in literally mountain climbing. I go straight up the mountain. Because that's the quickest way to do this. Usually you're supposed to climb the mountain by using all those rope pulls and setups and stuff. I do this slightly more efficiently. Come on, hit him once again, please. I do this slightly more efficiently by going straight up the mountain instead. Rope pulls are just kind of, you can think of them as being broken enough that if any rope pull is in the room anywhere, you can probably walk through walls as far as you want. Not quite, but that's the gist of it.
If rope pulls are around, it means walls are optional.
Pretty much, indeed. So also, if you talk to an NPC who gathers your party, that usually means in the event where your party gets gathered, after you talk to the NPC, that means usually you can walk through walls. Or at least your characters can walk through walls. And because I used a level 1 charge attack with the sword just before I talked with that NPC, it gathered my party, the level 1 charge attack got buffered and executed after the gathering, and well, the sprite straight up jumped through the wall. So you may be wondering, normally you don't go here, or maybe you don't know the game and you don't know that. Either way, what you're normally supposed to do is you go to the Temple of Darkness, get the Shadow Element Shade and steal the mana seed there. You go to the Temple of Light and get to... I almost messed up. You go to the Temple of Light and get the Light, Summon Spirit, Lumina, seal this mana seed there. You go to the Moon Temple, get the Moon Mana Spirit, and also seal the mana seed there. You go to Tasnica and have a little bit of a more subplot because you are not ready yet to face your doppelgangers. Which, by the way, I just defeated them by straight up killing myself. Because that's apparently how you doppelganger. So yeah, instead of doing this, we just do this little trick with using a level 1 charge attack, then quickly talking to Jock, the guy on top of the mountain, and then we jump through the wall into the area where you're not supposed to go yet. For reference, this is one of the big differences between the 1-player, 1-controller category and the 2-player categories. You can do this with 1 controller, this little skip here, but there is a different, bigger issue that we have no solution for just 1 controller so far. Which is why you do go into the Temple of Shadows and Temple of Light with 1 controller. You can skip Luna if you want to, and you don't have to go to Tasnica either with 1 controller, but you can't skip Luna and Shadow or Shade from so far. Also, we have here the gigantic watermelon legs with a also pretty big mouth. He's a rather interesting boss in my opinion, because he's the first boss who actually uses the wall spell. Wall reflects all spells back to you. He would be super weak to magic, because his magic defense is really low. But in this run here, we don't use any magic to attack whatsoever. So what he is intended to have is have a wall up that reflects spells, and you need to remove that wall before you can hit him with spells and actually damage him. We just straight up block him into place and wail on him with some physical attacks instead of. So I think you can probably see it on Stinger's screen right now, where he is going to be killing off one of, at least 2 of his party members, or trying anyways, in order for it to defeat the corresponding shadow clones. So that is how we defeat the doppelgangers rather quickly. So you can straight up kill the doppelgangers by using damage, but killing off your own characters is way quicker. At this point, I would like to point out, we have basically no armor for this point in the game, as in the last time we bought armor was in the Desert City, and we are now something like 4 or 5 tiers beyond that in terms of how much damage the enemies deal. And they will mostly just start to one-shot each and every single one of our characters if they just feel like it. Or more specifically, if we are not paying close enough attention. So the further this run goes, the more intense you could say it gets, just based on enemies dealing that much more damage. Alright, after defeating Watermelon Boss, the Sunken Continent rises, and you're supposed to go through the underground Sunken City, then go all the way through into the Grand Palace, traverse the Grand Palace, and, well, subsequently.
And don't forget the ancient subway.
Oh yeah, that's a nice place too, I like that. You don't usually get to see that.
Only English lists.
Indeed. So yeah, we skip all of that in a rather special manner. Secret of Mana is one of those games where you see the intro cutscene twice. And let me real quick drink something and then explain what happened. Alrighty. So, what I just did there is I went to the Frost Forest, and there was a Nico which let me save at his place. The special thing about the Frost Forest Nico is that it's the only place in the game where you can land and save in the same screen that you actually landing in. What that does is the game normally tries to figure out where you currently are at by saving your game location based on where you entered the screen from. Because you landed with Flammy, that value is null, as in exactly nil, nothing, nada. And it has nothing to save into that value. So what we are doing here now is we have a corrupted save, which has no location to start with. If you try to load it normally, it crashes the game. However, here I'm going to be holding Start Select L on R for just a few seconds after we get into a specific place in the cutscene, and that saves the location of the cutscene. Then we load the save file, it loads us into that location where the cutscene is playing, and boom. Weird stuff happens. In that cutscene, there's a trigger in case you are in control of a full party, or just a few characters anyways. In case you are in control of characters, it will teleport you out of the out of the area and into portals. But you're still in what I call cutscene mode. Cutscene mode is what happens when you get an invisible character in your party. So now currently I just used candy and a candy on the lady and the boy. What that did is it made the boy and the... Wow, that's awkward. What that did is it made the other characters visible again after they were invisible from the cutscene mode. Don't ask me why that is, that's just kind of how it works. After they get into that animation, they are made visible again. Alrighty. So, and then what I did is, while you are in this cutscene mode, as I call it, you can actually walk through walls as long as a text box is open. Conveniently enough, if you go into the front entrance of the Grand Palace, it will have a text box which just exclaims, "Oh, we need to find another way. We can't go any further here." Ironically, thanks to that text box, while we have an invisible character in our party, we can actually walk the wall, traverse the Grand Palace literally backwards, hit a few triggers in the previous room, and then go back to the main room to fight the boss, and then just skip the entirety of the Underground and Grand Palace. You cannot do this specific skip with just one controller, at least we have not found a way to do so as of yet. So what we're currently doing is we just use two controllers for executing the skip. Not being able to execute the skip actually has the consequence of you needing to go through the Grand Palace the normal way, which also means that you have to get Shade and Lumina, because otherwise the passages inside the Grand Palace cannot be opened up. So and here is Hexus, my literal favorite boss of the game, and she's defeated. Bye bye Hexus. So yeah, safe warping is the technique that we call it. We just kind of have now that corrupted save file, and as long as we hold start, select L and R for a second or two, we can literally save warp into any place with that save file status that we are in. And I'm going to do this here again after defeating Hexus, and save warp into the next room. This skips some cutscene triggers, and now I can actually fight this guy that is called the Mech Rider number 3. Which normally has a little bit of an introductory cutscene to him, but we skip that introduction. Also, kind of makes the fight literally have no music at all, which is kind of a bit creepy, but I like it. So, alrighty, Mech Rider number 3, kind of like the other two Mech Riders, his AI script is questionable. Whenever you hit him the first time, he will use Wall on himself, which reflects spells. Then he will check, do I have a buff on myself? If he doesn't have a buff on myself, he will cast, he will try to cast a buff on himself if he doesn't have one. Speed up in this case. But because he has Wall, Wall reflects all spells, and the speed up buff just jumps onto my characters instead. Which conveniently enough prevents him from ever getting a buff on his own, so he literally never does anything but try to buff himself over and over and over again. And then when his Wall reflect spell would run out, he just checks, oh, I don't have Wall anymore, let's cast Wall again. So, Mech Rider number 3 never does anything but try to buff himself and doesn't do anything. The reason why he doesn't do anything in this case is we are at the very bottom of the arena. His hitbox is way larger than our hitbox, and so he can actually not get at the same vertical level, which is what he needs to get at if he wants to do or execute any physical attacks. Alrighty, and that was the entirety of the Tree Palace or Grand Palace completed.
Yeah, I'm starting Hexus now.
Good luck. What I'm going to be doing now is something that is not normal in the route, but this is a marathon type run, so I'm going to very briefly to Pandora and save. Because the next area is going to be really dangerous. If you play this casually, you may think, okay, I caught up to this by now. The next area is going to be the Pure Lands, right? The next area is going to be the screen here north of Pandora. Pandora is the city down there, by the way. What I'm going to be doing here is I charge up a special attack with the sprite, a level 1 charge attack. Then I let him move towards that little jumpy guy, which is supposed to bring you up on the ledge over there. I think he's really nice about that. And, well, I interrupt that jumping onto the ledge thing by calling Flammy just before. This is, by the way, something that we couldn't do up until recently with just one controller. There's a different way to do this with one controller, but the short version is I initiated the event jumping onto that ledge, and that event gets executed at the first possible moment. Which means, if you try to normally land on the Mana Fortress right now, it will turn out that, hey, the barrier is way too strong, or the force is way too strong. We need to find another way to get onto the Mana Fortress. which in our case, well, we did find another way to avoid that barrier, and that's what we call the Mana Fortress barrier skip. So we don't ever visit the Pure Lands, we don't learn that the boy's mother is a tree, and his father is... the ghost at the Podos village. So I guess that never happened. Kind of like Santa never stole the Fire Mana seed, and we didn't need to save Christmas. So also you may have noticed, the sprite just took something like 460 damage in one swing from the enemy. That means he's straight up dead. We still didn't buy any armor, because why would we? Armor is not required to get through these areas anyways. So the short version is, you could go and buy some armor, we have enough money to do so, if we really wanted to. Oh, whoopsie. Don't kill the sprite, still need him. But as a consequence, as long as I keep getting hit by enemies, my characters will mostly die in just one hit from the enemies. So the maneuver we need to do in the Mana Fortress is actually really tricky, and this is what we call Armorless Mana Fortress, where we have to literally avoid every single point of damage from all the enemies, otherwise we straight up die. So the further we go in this run, the more intense it gets. Oh, I might get a buffy set up. Okay, hang on a second. Oh, no! Stop.
Right now, the strat that Yaga's trying on Buffy is a pretty precise series of normal / overcharges and slowdown casts to pin Buffy in place, and he can get off 5 or 6 overcharge attacks pretty easily without having to worry about a Buffy flying up, which is pretty valuable.
And I lost my normal slash, but the attack worked out anyways in the end. Alrighty, Buffy done.
Nice.
So, it's really difficult to talk during Buffy since there is, let's put it this way, so much going on, so many little things you can do to optimize this fight that you really need to focus hard on it. Also the setup that Stinger mentioned, trying to get those series of overcharged or just overcharged normal attacks in, is really precise, and if you execute it properly, you gain like a lot of free hits on Buffy, which is extremely valuable just because Buffy has a high chance of just flying up in the air where it cannot hit Buffy at all. And not being able to hit Buffy is really bad for you, to say the least. Since you just sit there for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes, and there's nothing you can do about that. So, alrighty. Wrong character. I wish you good luck on Buffy.
Yeah, he's currently floating.
Oh, he treated me actually really nicely.
Floating and casting Dispel Magic.
Oh, good luck.
For those who don't know, Dispel Magic gets rid of my overcharge, so I have to set it back up again.
Yep, especially if he targets the boy. Buffy usually targets the character that is closest to him, but because the boy just often needs to get up close to use the attacks, that is really easy to target the boy there. So here what I'm currently doing is I fight the Dread Slime and I use Wall on all of my characters, which means all of my characters have 2 charges of Wall which reflect 2 spells each. Dread Slime never does anything but cast Acid Rain, which reduces a target's defense and also deals a chunk of damage. here he actually hits the sprite because the wall eventually ran out. So the reason why we cast wall on Dread Slime instead of just negating the spell attacks, because all of the spell attacks just straight up kill us, is it's quicker to give everybody 2 charges of wall spells instead of trying to have everybody get, well, the damage negated. You can cancel out damage, I'm not even sure we mentioned that. You can cancel out damage in this game when you get hit by a spell by just using an item on that character. Like a healing item or a barrel item, any item just works.
Alright, buff you down.
Alright, nice. Wasn't too bad, I guess. Actually, I'm just going to show this off real quick here. My characters are leveling up. Level 31, level 29, we get level 30, they get level 31. And instead of checking those level up attacks, those level ups after you defeat Dread Slime, you can actually just open up a full screen menu and cancel most of those level up texts the quick way, which is really nice. Now I'm in the 3rd section of the Mana Fortress. In my opinion, the most dangerous one to traverse, just based on it having the most dangerous enemies and the most dangerous enemy setups at the same time. So we have more or less precise plans on how we want to get through this area, but getting through it in the first place can be really difficult, since not all spawns work out the way you plan them to most of the time. And just based on previous spawns, more enemies might spawn in the future, and it will be harder to despawn them or manipulate them. So it can really easily end up in a mess where enemy spawns that you shouldn't have spawned, like this one. Don't do that. Oh boy, alright, I'm fine. And yeah, they basically just one-shot all of your characters if you are not super careful. Okay, we're fine. Way to prove my point.
Okay, 0 misses on Dread Slime.
Wow, nice. Dread Slime is never really an issue as much as he can just waste your time, because at this point in time our levels are high enough that we hit or miss only about 30% of the time, as in the miss chance is based on your agility. But Dread Slime also casts spells, which means he has some phases where he is invulnerable to being attacked. And determining when he cannot be hurt by attacks is really difficult, just because he doesn't have any tell on when he casts a spell. Alrighty, managed to get past the last section of the Mana Fortress here. Good luck on your travels.
Yep, starting now.
Nice. And now we are getting to the second to last boss. This is going to be the Dark Lich. Dark Lich is a boss where the optimal case scenario, I believe we determined, is if he just stays up there and hits you with harmless spells once in a while and you just negate the spells. The second fastest scenario is when he instantly goes underground for, well, a special phase, a secondary phase that he can get into. But he needs to do that instantly for it to be worthwhile, but there's no way for us to determine whether he goes in there anyways in the first place, so we just kind of hope he either goes in there fast or not at all. Alrighty. Maybe we'll be able to show it off.
Maybe. I got all the despawns in 3rd section.
Nice. That's better than me, to say the least. So here, right now, Dark Lich is being relatively nice. Also, the lady still had some wall charges on herself, which means he just reflected a high level freeze back at himself, which actually does a good deal of damage, but it's not significant enough to actually make a difference. It's more of a waste of time rather than not. In fact, I would actually take some Death Sword characters in case he uses physical attacks on them, just because that would make it easier for me to deal with his current phases. Like here, He went underground, but he didn't follow through with any headbang inducing attacks. Okay. So he immediately came back over ground. So his pattern here was pretty nice. That was a reasonably simple victory. And you may have noticed something, that we always position either the sprite or the girl in front of the boy. That is because most of the bosses target the characters that is the closest to them to too early. They target the character that is the closest to them. So we usually try to have either the girl or the sprite absorb the spells and then switch to the other character that is currently free to negate the spell damage by using items on them. So in this case, during the Dark Lich fight, I switched the boy to have the sword equipped. The sword actually has an interesting thing to it, that it increases your agility, which means you have a slightly higher hit chance. But for the most part, it's not worth it to actually just use the sword based on it having a higher hit chance. But what we also do here is we awaken up the mana sword. For anyone curious, no, you don't have to use the mana sword to defeat the mana beast. That is actually not a thing. However, the mana sword has a 100% chance to hit. So instead of hitting 70% of the time, we can now increase that chance by a significant margin. So, Chrono Curve, real quick, are you here around, or
Yep.
the others? Okay, basically our time stops as soon as we lose control over our characters after the mana beast gets destroyed.
Alrighty.
How do we...
Just give
how
a
do we tell
loud
people
shout
to
to
start?
Kea for him to start. It's like a big go or something. And
Alright,
then-
I will just say time, and then I'm going to be done, okay?
Alrighty.
Excellent. So, just before entering the previous cutscene, I casted both portions of the mana sword spell here to start the boy having, well, the mana sword. This skips about a 20-second cutscene where you would normally have that round and great awakening of the mana sword. But just skip by clever sequencing of spells, we can guarantee that we skip that little cutscene. Then further, I casted Ice Saber on the boy's weapon, which also completely negates all chances for which stops the mana sword timer, more precisely. As in, normally the mana sword runs out after a while, based on your current level of Try it. That's the spell. Oh, mana beast comes from the top. That's unfortunate. So I cast Acid Rain there with the sprite, and with a specific setup, I reduced the mana beast's defense by just using Acid Rain. So here's something that we haven't really explained yet, how attacks and defense works. So your normal maximum amount of damage is 999 damage, and I'm actually currently dealing 999 damage, but after that, the damage is reduced by the enemy's defense. As in, the mana beast has something like 450 defense, so 999 minus 450 is approximately how much damage I deal right now. Not quite, but I don't know the exact numbers. Either way, if we would land a critical hit in this phase here, we could actually completely skip a cycle. as in a 1 cycle is something that you can get from the Mana Beast, but it's not really worth going for it if the Mana Beast comes from above, even though it's still technically possible, but you have to invest way too many spell slowdowns for it to be a thing. Also, by the way, just in case you're wondering, I'm completely negating the Mana Beast's attack here by casting spells at appropriate timing. Otherwise, all of my party members would just straight up get one shot. And it comes from above again. Did you get the chance for a 1 cycle?
No, I came from above.
That's fortunate. So yeah, either way, if you land a critical hit, the damage gets added on top of the Mana Beast's defense, so to speak, and you could deal up to 999 damage. So far, no crit luck. But the Mana Beast is down, and time is very, very soon for me. So get ready for the next runner here. Time. There we go. We're done here.
Nice run.
Yeah, congrats on that. Well, I'll let you finish off commentary if you have any other final remarks on this fight. Stinger.
Alrighty. Let's see. How did you fight go, Stinger?
Just finished the first cycle. Just waiting on him to come back now. Somehow I actually remembered to cast Cure Water after the first cycle.
That's good. Otherwise, it would be straight up dead. So
No,
yeah,
that
this
wasn't
was overall a decent run. You saw the ups and downs of Secret of Mana, where the enemies can just kind of really screw you over, and how little mistakes can result in big things. And this is kind of how speedrunning Secret of Mana works. We have 4 different categories, which we tend to play once in a while. Our community is not too large, but if you are interested in running Secret of Mana, you are welcome and we are happy to help. So I think there's that. I'm going to let Stinger finish, and then we will probably let the next runners take over with Chrono Trigger, an amazing RPG, and really awesome runners.
Yeah. Congrats, guys, on the
Should
run.
be just a couple more hits.
It's very interesting to watch, for sure.
Thank you.
And great commentary as well, Yagamoth.
Yaga makes my job so easy, and the Mana Beast is down.
Nice.
So I'll give you the cue to start going in a second, SW. And time.
GG.
Alrighty. So now on